In the last video, we talked about Python module extension and Python module programming. Well, this video is going to be a walkthrough of Python module extension and how to go about writing the actual model to extend Python so that you're able to call your C code from Python. We're going to write a Python module called extension module. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is import extension module. Now, of course, it's going to give me an error because we don't actually have this module created first. But real quick, I'm just going to, so this is going to be the module that we're going to create. And in this module, we're going to call two functions. One to say hello, in example, xmod.sayHello. I want to give it a message like say hello. When we run this function, it's not going to give us an error. Instead, it's going to call the C code that we're going to write here in a second. And another function we're going to write is xmodule.add, and this is going to add two decimal numbers, like for example 56.3 or plus 101.5, and it's going to return that operation back to us in Python. To create this module, we'll need to write the C code, create a new file, and name it what you may like, but add the suffix module.c. So I'm going to save this file on my desktop and call it xmod and add the suffix module.c and save. And so now this is going to be our module file. And next we're going to include the necessary header file, and you only need to include one, and that's python.h. That's the Python API header file. And then a very important thing we need to create is the Python exception object. This is going to be responsible for handling any possible errors that occurs inside of our module that we're creating. An exception is going to be raised when we encounter a problem, and so that we don't crash the Python interpreter. Here we're creating the basic Python module extension function anatomy. And what we're saying here is that we want to create a function to be called from Python. And all functions always have this argument's definition, where self represents the module containing this function, and args represents the list of parameters passed to this function. And at the end of the function, you typically return a value. When you return null, that indicates either an error or that the function returns nothing. So if you recall, our function expects at least one argument, and that argument is a message from Python saying hello or whatever other message that we wish to display. So we're going to be extracting that information from Python and convert the Python information to C variable called message, and this is going to be return value that we're going to return in the form of a Python object when we're finished. So since we expect at least one parameter to be passed to a function, we need to parse this argument, which is represented as a tuple in Python. We need to convert it to a C understandable data type. When you pass an argument to a C extension module, you can go ahead and extract those information from Python by calling one of these three functions. What this does is it takes the argument supplied to your function and converts it to C representation. And the C representation is achieved by using the correct formatting. And the formatting itself represents a way to specify what type of objects you want to extract from Python. Usually this formatting is of a single character, and where S indicates you want a character, B represents a unsigned character, H is an integer, H is a short integer, I is a regular integer, and L is for long. and D is for double, and then the capital O is that you expect to get a Python object. This function returns 1 on success and returns 0 on error, so it's very important that you check the return value and handle and set a Python exception appropriately. If you're not familiar with Python exception setting, please check out the last video. And of course, if there is an error, you want to raise an exception. Like parsing through your arguments, it's also very important to be able to build new values. And to build new values, you do the same thing as you would when parsing arguments, and you supply the same type of formatting strings. So with this new information that we understand how to format a particular message, we're understanding that we're taking this tuple and converting it into a data type of a C character type, and storing the data in this variable called MSG, message. But however, if we return 0, we're going to return an error code to the Python function and return immediately. Next, after we have obtained this information from Python in a C understandable data type, we want to be able to check for errors and consistency so that the information that we get from Python is presented in a way that we expect it to be. To do this, I'm just creating a simple type of error checking mechanism. I'm checking to see if the message says this is an error, and if it is, we're going to demonstrate how to raise an exception in Python. And if this message isn't equal to this, we're going to continue with our normal programming process. So here, if this message is equal to this is an error, we're going to go ahead and call this function that sets a Python exception. And we're going to pass it this Python exception object that we create or will create here in a second. And we describe the type of message that was created. And then we return null to propagate this error message to the Python interpreter after we've set the exception flag. However, if there's no error, we're going to continue a normal process and just print out a message saying your message is whatever. And we're going to return a sample return value of 21 just for the sake of returning something. Now, to actually return this value, we can't just return a regular integer to Python, because everything in Python is expected to be an object, including numbers and strings. So we need to build this as an integer type by using the same type of formatting as parsing. So we're building an integer and we're giving it the integer value that we wish to return, in this case as 21. Okay, so join me in the next video and we'll talk about how to write the next function to add two numbers together, and as well as how to build this script. And as always, please remember to subscribe and rate this video. Thank you.